Hi, my dearest family. Today we are going to be looking at the upcoming Pluto-Mars conjunction. Pluto-Mars conjunction happens approximately every 2 years. It depends, sometimes a little bit faster and sometimes a little bit longer. So to show you, I've already looked at, so we're gonna have one conjunction which is gonna be taking place 2028, January 11th, but that's not the chart that we are going to be talking about. It's gonna be happening on 6th degree of Aquarius. Then we're gonna have one very shortly, so I want to show you that one as well, on January 27th, 2026. So as you can see, there is a 2 year gap between them two. So this is going to be the current one, and this is going to take place on 3 degree of Aquarius. Okay, and then I want to show you the previous one as well. The reason why we do that, because I would like to spot a pattern. So the previous one happened 2024, February 14th. So that happened approximately about 11 months ago, and that happened on 0 degree of Aquarius. Now, what do you see? That basically we are meeting approximately once every year and then once every 2 years. It depends on the retrogression of Mars. But every single conjunction is going to happen approximately 3 degree in the zodiacal sign ahead. So we had 0 degree, then we had the 3 degree, and then we had the 6 degree. So if we looked at the conjunction in 2030-ish or 29, depending on Mars retrograde motion, then this would be happening approximately around 9 degree of Aquarius. So that's actually very interesting because from a Duad point of view, which you might have noticed, I love talking about, it is always in the next Duad. So the very first 2.5 degree of the sign is always the purest form of the sign. So that would be Aquarius. And then between 2.3 to 2.3 to 4.59 degree, that's going to be the next what in a sign. So that's going to be a Pisces Duad. And then the following one is going to be falling into an Aries Duad. So as you can see, this upcoming conjunction, the very first one which we experienced in the sign of Aquarius in 2024, happened in Aquarius and Aquarius Duad as well. The next one is going to be taking place in Pisces Duad because this is going to be happening on, sorry, I'm on the wrong chart. Yeah, I'm on the right chart. Sorry. It's happening in 3 degree 34 minutes. So that's going to be something to do with a Pisces dot. And then when we move forward, it's going to be, sorry, I'm on the wrong chart. When we move forward, and then we're going to experience one on 6 degree. And the next one is between 5 to 7.29. So that's going to be the Aries dot. So one thing that I would like to kind of clarify here straight away. Many astrologers associate war with Pluto-Mars conjunction, and absolutely right, but the Duad needs to be right as well, okay? So I don't think there would be kind of like major wars, like World War, for example, while the conjunction is happening in the sign of Pisces. However, Pisces is very religious motivated, so there could be some religious struggles. But when Pluto and Mars conjunction is happening on that Piscean Duad, sorry, Aries Duad, yeah, there is a possibility of more volatility. So I just wanted to point that out. However, we are talking about 2028, and this is going to get an exact trine as well from Uranus. That's all is just 5 minutes away, so that's really, really close. But that might potentially is a economic upheaval or actually an economic change, as well as some war type of scenarios, because we're going to have Saturn in the sign of Aries as well. So this conjunction is on Aries Duad, and Saturn, the ruler of Pluto and Mars, is in the sign of Aries as well. Okay, but I don't want to go ahead that much because I want to be talking to you today about the upcoming conjunction, which is taking place on 27th of January 2026. But before we dive into this chart, I would like to let you know that I've got a webinar coming up on eighth house from a medical perspective, because eighth house is an invisible house. It has got a natural quincunx aspect to the first house, and the quincunx represent number six, and sixth house is connected to medical matters. So the eighth house carries a lot of medical elements with it as well. And also, I am about to be launching my 12 house booklet, which is a good 200 pages, and it includes everything you need to know about the 12 house. So if you would like to get that, I think it's about $10 or $12, then go on my website, AstroViktor.com, and you can pre-order it right now. And if you would like to get more personalized readings, of course, you can book one with me. Also, you can opt for my weekly forecast packages. It usually comes with about a 15-minute breakdown for each sign. And then, of course, a general overview. But let's have a look at what is happening in this chart. So we will have this Pluto-Mars conjunction 27th of January on 3 degree of Aquarius, and it is falling into Pisces Duad. Now, the very last conjunction took place in 2024, February 14th, and that happened on 0 degree of Aquarius. So, of course, the 2024 conjunction was super good, or not super good, sorry, super important because it was on 0 degree. And that was pretty much the first time Pluto and Mars met in the sign of Aquarius. So you can imagine this as a progression. We are moving forward. Of course, when I'm talking about the dwarfs, it's important to remember that the theme is still Aquarius. So, such as fighting for freedom, and breaking away from psychological blockages. We're going to be looking at the Pluto-Mars cycles, meaning in a second. And then when it moves into the sign of Pisces, not the Pisces, but the Piscean Duad, that's going to be about forgiveness and then having to work through some subconscious matters and letting go and all those type of stuff. So we have planted the seed in 2024 at the very entrance of Aquarius. So the upcoming one on January 27th, 2026, it's more to do with a major push towards manifesting that vision that we have created back in 2024, February. So, the very first conjunction last year was on Aquarius. What, like I mentioned, the upcoming one is on Pisces Duad. So while it was in the sign of Aquarius, that was about breaking ground, initial shock, the first taste of Pluto's 20 years power shift, really, because Mars is an activator, it's a trigger. And then now we are meant to be refining the power with intuition, letting go of the ego, and spiritualizing our ambitions as well. From a collective point of view, last year it was about, the future is it's knocking on our door, basically, high tech, being a little bit more rebellious, and so forth. And then now what it is teaching us that the future is actually fluid because it's on Piscean what. So it's about bridging the technology with empathy and also a little bit of a collective healing, like technological advancements when it comes to the pharmaceutical companies and so forth. So, of course, last year it was a double Aquarius, a pure, unadulterated, maybe a bit harsh type of Pluto-Mars conjunction. It was about raw innovation, cutting ties with the past, kind of like wanting to give the power back to people. However, now it's kind of like imagine that this Mars and Pluto is not only in Aquarius, but in the sign of Pisces as well. So it's more of a complex mix here. It suggests that the drive for power and transformation is going to be tempered a little bit by compassion and intuition in the next couple of years. It's about it instead of just trying to fix society, for example, through logic or tech, the focus shifts to healing the collective psyche. It's less about revolution, in the streets. It's more about the revolution of the soul, actually. What Pluto is the planet of transformation and Mars triggers. So Mars is triggering this slow moving transformation, and yes, it's a spiritualized action. We can feel this very sudden, intense drive to act on our dreams or on a calling, something that might feel larger than ourselves. And it also kind of represents that, the technology meets somehow the mystical, the unseen here. So we might see a major breakthrough, for example, in biotech. AI that mimics consciousness, for example, or there could be a lot more focus on the ethical, on the spiritual implication of our digital lives, because Aquarius represents digital lives. I think 2024 was more of a year of push from this Pluto Mars archetype point of view. And 2026 has got that feeling of surrender. It is kind of like telling us, imagine Pluto Mars is kind of like the nuclear weapon. So it says that the power, to gain power, is not going to come from fighting, but it's about letting like a dead situation finally to dissolve. So, while the last year's conjunction was most likely a lightning strike, because Aquarius represents electricity, imagine this Pisces twist to it, more of like an underwater volcanic activity. So, it happens deep. It happens in the deep. It is like a little bit of a murky waters. We cannot see exactly um, crystal clearly what is going on. It's a collective subconscious, really. Now we probably know that Aquarius rules technology, right? And Pisces rules the unseen. So, and in 2024, we did see the raw power of AI and digital surveillance. Those topics have took center stage. And it feels like in 2026 onwards, these technologies are going to be questioned. Um, I can imagine the rise of AI-driven spirituality, or even I can imagine that religion is gonna get somehow digitalized. So I wouldn't be shocked on such things. But Mars is to a certain extent it's a builder. So Mars doesn't just want to build a better computer, it wants to build a computer that feels, because Pisces is about feelings as well. Now, yes, Mars and Pluto are often, coming together. It's a warrior type of energy, but the nature of fighting seems to be changing in a Pisces Duad. We might start realizing that the most effective way to win a conflict is more to do with like the strategic act of vulnerability or forgiveness. Because forgiveness can disarm the opponent as well. Because Pisces represents the archetype of the martyr, this conjunction may violently expose where we are helping others just to feed our own ego or power. So it really feels like that this conjunction is going to be about the purification of our motives for doing something good. Now, Aquarius represents the collective, and the Pisces Duad makes the collective limitless and borderless. So this could really talk to us about like dissolving borders. I mean, imagine that it's kind of like a movement that ignore national or digital borders entirely. Like, think of like global decentralized networks or the digital nomad movements. Um, or I can even imagine, because Mars and Pluto together can become quite obsessive, actually. Sorry, I had to stop the recording for 2 seconds because they were ringing the bell. So, like I said, these can become quite obsessive as well. And when it comes to Pisces Duad, it adds a lot of sensitivity to it. So imagine something that could be spreading like viruses, for example. Now, I'm not necessarily talking about, like a medical energy to it. I would also like to mention that with Mars and Pluto, yes, there is this destructive power. So something can be destroyed here. So, for example, I'm imagining something to do with water, or I can imagine some oil splits happening in the ocean and so forth. So we might be seeing some type of energies around that too. Okay, the other thing that I think it's worth exploring with this potentially a historical context. Looking at what happened in 2024 February in the world. And the reason why I would be looking at that is because obviously we had a Pluto-Mars conjunction around that time as well. Yes, that happened on 0 degree of Aquarius, which I mentioned that it acts like a spark and potentially for several major shifts in power, technology, collective ideology, breakthroughs, and the shock as well. So, firstly, I looked up what went down around those dates, specifically around the February 14th. And on 16th of February 2024, just 2 days after the exact conjunction, the Russian opposition leader Alexei Navalny died in a Siberian prison. Now, what's the connection here? Pluto rules death and rebirth, the underground power, and Aquarius rules the revolutionaries and the people as well. So his death became a global symbol of the struggle between the centralized power, which is very Pluto, and the spirit of the democratic resistance, and that's the Aquarius element. On the very same day of the conjunction, February 14th, the US House Intelligence Committee issued a cryptic warning around a serious national security threat. It was later revealed to be intelligence regarding Russia's development of the space-based nuclear anti-satellite weapons. Aquarius actually rules the space and the high-end technology, and Mars Pluto is the signature for weapons, mass destruction. So the idea of nuclear weapons in space would be a quintessential Pluto in Aquarius theme, actually. The day after the conjunction, OpenAI revealed Sora, their text to video AI that shocked the world with its realism. So this could be a moment when the public realized that the truth in video was about to dissolve. So, of course, this is a very much of an Aquarian topic again. February 2024 was quite a massive month for global elections as well. We had one in Indonesia, February 14th, and Pakistan as well. And in Pakistan, the banned party of Imran Khan won a plurality of seats through a grassroots digital campaign. Um, Mars acts as a trigger for Pluto's intensity. So, yes, it could manifest as sudden violence as well. So, on February 14th, we had the Kansas City parade shooting as well. And the Middle East started escalating also, the conflict in Gaza, heavy strikes in Rafah and other territories as well. So yes, it could be happening. But like I said, the Pluto-Mars conjunction on Aquarius Duad is a little bit more intense than in the sign of, or in a Piscean Duad. So, I would say that this end of January isn't just a one-day event. It's a very concentrated window of extreme astrological intensity. So we've got not only Pluto and Mars there, but we've got Sun entering the sign of Aquarius around the 20th of January, and Venus is making a conjunction to Pluto as well. Then we're gonna have January 22nd when Mercury conjunct Pluto also on 3 degree of Aquarius as well. So that's, for example, the archetype of information leak, intense news, secrets being revealed, or major breakthroughs in how we communicate, process data, and so forth. On the very same day, Mars actually enters the sign of Aquarius as well. And on the same day, Sun will be making a conjunction to Pluto also. So a new Pluto-Sun cycle is about to be starting as well. And then we've got the infamous Mars Pluto conjunction happening also on 3 degree of Aquarius, and it feels like this is the peak. This is the moment of that raw, concentrated drive or that inevitable change that we are meant to be going for. We cannot kind of like avoid that anymore. I would say that to kind of give you a bit of a summary, there will be intense debates regarding privacy, the subconscious impact of the AI. I'm sure we're gonna see that. In 2024, we saw that what AI could really do. So in 2026, we deal with the Pluto side, how it controls us, how we can reclaim our power from it. Mars Pluto can represent conflicts, but in Aquarius, Pisces Duad, this is less about the traditional borders and more about cyber warfare, psychological operations, biological breakthroughs. On a personal level, I would say that this is going to talk to you about, depending on what house position it falls into, but you are being asked to cut out the bureaucracy or the person standing between you and your own power. It is the archetype of bravery. So if it triggers any personal planets of yours, especially very strict, being very strict with the degrees, it would be 3, 4, or 5 degree of the sign of Aquarius. Why? Because the previous cycle hit 0 degree, and now this cycle ends on 3 degree 34. So therefore, yes, if you have got planets, for example, on 2 degree, you might see some continuation of the previous couple of years. But that would be more to do with a psychological kind of like cleaning up. If you have got any planets on 3, 4, 5 degree of the fixed signs, Aquarius, Leo, Scorpio, or Taurus, then what it indicates is that you are going to be experiencing this conjunction not only on a psychological level, but as an external event as well. This aspect pattern is very much about an all or nothing pressure, and use the Piscean Dwad's gift, which is the intuition. If, let's say, a move feels heavy or forced, then wait a little bit if your intuition is saying so. If it feels like a quiet certainty, then basically your Mars Pluto power is speaking there. This is also an excellent time for digital detox or clearing out old social circles that no longer resonate with your own soul's path. Now, there are 3 asteroids being super close to this conjunction as well. So we're going to have Diana, Icarus, and Astraea. So let's talk about those as well. Asteroid Diana is the untamed protector archetype, or she's also called as Artemis. One is the Roman version, and the other one is the Greek version. And she is the goddess of hunt, wild animals. She represents self-sufficiency, and the part of us that is whole, like something that makes us whole. Now, I want to give you the astrological number. On top of my head, Diana is 78. So let me just check it for you. Yes, Diana is 78. It is almost on 3 degree. So with Mars and Pluto, Diana adds that warrior protector energy. This isn't just about power. This is about defending the vulnerable, for example. So yes, potentially this can make someone feel super fierce, or there is that primal need to protect your privacy, or you can feel like an underdog with this as well. We've got Icarus there. So Icarus astrological number is 1566, in case you would like to look it up where it is in your natal chart. And I love working with Icarus. I have made a webinar about Icarus as well before. I did a bit of an astrological research. But Icarus represents the risk of being burnt because Icarus was famous for trying to fly too close to the sun with wings of wax. And obviously, the wax of those wings started melting. And he didn't listen to the warning signs. So also Icarus represents the urge to escape certain type of restrictions and that kind of reckless speed. You know, what's very interesting here is that Mars Pluto is already super explosive. So adding Icarus to the big picture, it's a super kind of like explosive combination. There is a risk here of overestimating our own power or trying to ascend something before we even are ready for it. And the Pisces Duad, this could look like that spiritual ego um, that is ignoring certain type of boundaries here. What it says is that transformation is actually necessary, but don't fly so fast that you melt your own foundation. And then we've got Astraea there, and she's the one who stayed too long. Astraea was the very last of the immortals to live among humans during the Golden Age. And due to the fact that people became greedy, they started killing animals and each other and so forth, she decided to leave. But she had hope that humankind would change. That's the reason why she stayed too long. So she represents justice, innocence, but also the refusal to give up on a situation as well. So Australia can show us in our chart where we have got a tendency to stay too long. And with Pluto, Mars, it looks like that we are staying too long in kind of like a dying situation because we believe we can still fix it. It's kind of like, we have got that a sinking ship, and then we are the last to leave, thinking that we are going to be able to save something there. So I think it is pretty much could be the representation of us gripping onto an old dream, a social group, a belief system with Pisces Duad, and maybe that is clearly over. We are just hoping for a miracle. So this combination feels like that we're going to have to come up with an exit strategy. And Australia shouldn't be holding you back or resisting. So putting it all together, it really feels like that there is a message here. There is the message of radical self-liberation, where you are tempted to break all the rules at once, but you are being held back by a lingering sense of duty or idealism. So we might be seeing groups, for example, who feel they are the moral compass, and they may take a massive, reckless kind of like protest, for example, protesting or protecting their independence. That would be the Diana there against certain type of centralized power, which is Pluto. Mars, Pluto, Icarus together would have got that burn it all down type of energy. And Australia is telling us that, but there was something beautiful in it before. So this is pretty much how I'm imagining the Pluto-Mars cycle playing out. As you can see, we don't have any out-of-bound planets at the moment. Well, we do have got the moon, but the moon is, on and off. So we don't have any out-of-bound planets. Actually, what we have got right now is an out-of-bound Icarus, though. So out of those three asteroids, Icarus is out-of-bound at the moment. So that makes even more reckless from ignoring the warning signs. So, guys, I hope this video helps. Do let me know in the comment box below what house it falls into and how you would be able to imagine that planetary energy playing out in that particular house for you in the next 2 years. So, just to give you an example, how we might be able to kind of um, how you would be able to interpret that. So I have got a Pisces rising sign, and it means that it's going to be taking place in the 12th house. Firstly, you would need to look at where Pluto natally is and where Mars is. The reason why, because imagine that those two houses kind of come together and then meet at a particular point. So I've got natal Pluto in the eighth house in the sign of Libra, and then I've got Mars in Pisces in the first house. And the conjunction is going to be taking place in the 12th house. So somehow the eighth and the first house comes together, and then there is this new meeting point in the 12th house. But the planets are carrying the natal energies with them. So with natal Pluto in the eighth house, for example, that could talk to us about a purification of certain type of fears, having to face the shadow self of ourselves, right? And then Mars in the first house, for example, that would talk to us about someone who gets very motivated to achieve something or they want to get their body sorted. And then now this conjunction happens in the 12th house. And for example, the 12th house is connected to karmic baggages or bad habits. So one of the manifestation of this conjunction for me, for example, could talk to us about that I'm going to have to find that bridge between my private self, the 12th house, my public identity, and that's the first house. And maybe I'm going to have a financial or intimacy breakthrough because with Pluto in the eighth house, that's a financial and intimate house as well. So there could be a turning point in how I handle shared resources or deep emotional bonds, or maybe I finally cut a karmic cord that has been draining my energy for years. Because the eighth house is very karmic, the 12th house is very karmic as well. And Diana would give us a bit of an awakening, for example. Now, I'm not here to talk about my own chart, but I just wanted to give you an idea of how this can be read together. So I hope it helps, and I will see you in my next video, guys. Take care. Bye bye.